Hello, beautiful ladies. This is Ola Davis with another episode of the When Marriage Hurts podcast, and this one is episode number 80. Quick disclaimer, guys. I've been dealing with a cold and congested sinuses, so if I'm beginning to sound like one of the chipmunks on this on this episode, please bear with me. It has nothing to do with editing. It's because, my nostrils and my entire sinuses are congested right now. Okay. Now, what am I going to talk about today? Today, I just want to talk about, how to fix your abusive marriage, right? There's been quite a few episodes about recognizing hidden abuse, recognizing covert abuse, recognizing, emotional abuse, psychological abuse. And if you listen to at least between 5 and 10 episodes, I think you would have come to a place where you at least admit that you are in a dysfunctional marriage. Now, it's possible you're still struggling to call it abuse or not to call it abuse, right? But in order to just, I'm not going to convince you one way or the other what it is, because regardless of what we choose to term it or whatever terminology we decide to use, it's having the same effect. Okay. So whether you call it dysfunctional, difficult, abusive, whatever it is, today's episode is still going to be beneficial to you. So if you don't like the title, How to Fix My Abusive Marriage, you can think of it as How to Fix My Marriage. All right. Okay. That probably works for everybody. How can you fix it? How can you fix, the moment you understand that what's happening to you is not normal. It's not what, everybody just goes through the stuff in marriage kind of situation. The question that comes to mind is, how do I fix it? How do I fix it? How do I get it back to what it used to be? It used to be, such and such at the beginning of our relationship, or when we started dating, or when we just got married. How do I get it back to that? How do I get it back to that? First of all, if you're dealing with an abuser, whatever it is that your relationship looked like in the beginning was a complete facade. Okay, it was something. It felt real, but it only felt real to you. It really doesn't feel real to the abuser because they're just playing a part. Okay, but let's leave the past in the past, right? That's what people say. Let's leave the past in the past. How do you fix this? How do I say this lightly? I think the kindest way I can say this is, you're asking the wrong question, my dear. The fact that you are in a marriage and you're thinking to yourself, how do I fix this marriage? Keyword I shows that the problem is already bigger than you. Because you're thinking of fixing this relationship between you and your husband, and somewhere in your subconscious, you are taking up the responsibility to fix it. Or someone's made you believe it is your responsibility to fix it. That's not a good place to be, my dear. It's a relationship. It's a marriage. There's no such thing in a marriage as just a single person. Whenever a marriage goes from two people to one person, is either because there's been a divorce or there's been a death. So when you think, how do I fix it? Something is fundamentally wrong, and the brokenness is beyond you. The brokenness in the marriage is beyond you. Now, there's a lot that I could say on this topic, but I think I'm just going to use an analogy. I love analogies, guys. You probably know this by now. To make this episode short, I'm just going to stick to using an analogy. Think of your marriage as, are they called carts or bogies? I'm not referring to carts in the shopping like store carts. I'm referring to those vehicles, those things that were used back in the day to transport people in Europe and North America before cars, right? Like I think they are called cars, yeah, because there's this expression about not putting the cart before the horse, yeah. So imagine your marriage is like that. Your marriage is the cart, and you and your husband are the two horses pulling this cart. Okay, think about it, that have that imagery in mind. Now, if only one of those two horses is moving forward and doing the work to pull the cart forward, think about that. That's going to be really difficult, right? And no matter how hard that horse pulls, that cart is not going to move. It's just going to have, it might look like it's moving an inch or is budging back and forth, but it never really moves, does it? No, it doesn't. And that horse can think of a million ways to make that cart move. That horse could pray, that horse could try to do better, that horse could even fast and pray and read books, but the cart still doesn't move. The horse can even tell other people to pray along and do whatever and go to marriage conferences. The cart is still not going to move. All right? That horse can complain to the other horse and talk about, why are you doing this? Why aren't you? And the other horse will be like, what do you mean? I'm putting all my effort into this. You're the one who's not doing anything. And the first horse will be like, what? It's, in confusion. And other horses can come around and talk to the first horse and be like, just stop complaining, be a good Christian horse and do what you're supposed to do, right? And this is your cross to carry, this is your cross to bear. And the horse number one that's doing all the work looks in the cart and sees its children, right? Like and this is for those who have children, by the way. For those of you who don't even have children, your cart is empty, which could even be an advantage to you, right? But then the thing with the horse that doesn't have any kids in the cart, yet, is that other horses can tell that particular horse that, oh, once you have kids in the cart, the second horse is going to be forced to pull. So just focus your energy on having kids in the cart, right? And then for those that have kids in the cart, other horses will tell you, just quit complaining, think about the kids you have in the cart, and just encourage the other horse to pull. Which is kind of weird, because Why should you have to tell the other horse to pull when they know that there are kids in the car, when they are also a parent to the kids in the car, right? Like, you don't need that kind of motivation. You don't need someone to tell you to pull the car. Why does someone need to tell the other car horse to pull the car? But anyways, that is what it is like. That's what it's like trying to fix this on your own. Now, another thing women think is that they're going to talk their husband into pulling the cart. If only I can get him to a counselor. If only I can get him to speak to a mentor that's also a man that can. My dear, the fact that you have to get someone to speak to this horse to pull a card that they willingly signed up for is already a problem, my dear. So now, you can't make a horse pull a cart. You just can't. You can't. And you also can't pull it on your own, because the cart has already been designed and it's tethered to 2 horses, right? So that's the simple answer to how you fix this. How do you fix this kind of marriage? The answer is you can't. You can't fix a marriage where the other party does not want it fixed. They like it the way it is. The way that cat is on the same spot and isn't moving forward, that's their comfort zone. That's where the second horse wants to be. You can't pray them into wanting to move any further. You can't nag them into it. You can't cry and have a heart-to-heart talk. You could have a that kind of conversation with them, but it doesn't move them. It's completely meaningless to them, because they are in a good place. They like things as it is. You wanting to move that cart forward is going to cause them a lot of discomfort. You might see it as, oh boy, it's for the good of our family, it's for the good of our marriage. They do not see it that way. Okay? Your husband most likely is having the time of his life. The only thing he's not happy about is the fact that you are complaining about it. That's the only headache he has. If you will just shut up and sit down and just, maintain status quo, everything will be fine from the perspective of your husband. So, my dear, circling back to what I said earlier, how do I fix this marriage is the wrong question. You need to start asking the right questions. Like, how do I fix the damage this marriage has done to me? How do I fix the damage it has done to my children? It's time to start focusing on your own well-being. So going back to the analogy of the horse, this horse needs to start looking at its own legs and neck and everything, like, okay, I've been trying all these years to pull this cart, and it's caused some tension. It's caused, the ropes and stuff to cut into my skin. It needs to start examining itself and taking good care of itself. It needs to come to terms with the fact that there's no moving this cart forward. So the horse has a decision to make now. It's either going to just sit in that spot and be like, okay, I can't detach from this cart yet, and I can't, there's no moving forward either, but I can take care of myself. Or it can be like, you know what, I'm not pulling this cart with this person anymore. I'd rather pull it by myself. Because the truth is, you don't need 2 horses to pull a cart. Alright? Now, is it easier to pull the cart with 2 horses? Yes, especially if the cart has, loads of kids in it, right? But you still don't need 2 horses to pull it though. So it's easier for 1 horse to pull it than for it to partner with a horse that has no interest in pulling it. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it going to be the easiest thing? No. But is it still going to pull the cart forward? Yes. So the horse has to decide. If the horse decides, you know what, there's so much luggage, baggage, so much kids in this cart, I just could never see myself pulling it by myself. That's okay. That's the decision of the horse to make. But for the horse to sit there in the misery because the second horse wouldn't pull the cart, that's not good for the first horse either. Do not sit in that misery. Do not let it drain the life out of you. If you have to stay in that marriage, either for a short period of time or long term or forever, whatever you decide, you have to tend to your wounds. Now, can you tend to those wounds better if you're out of the marriage? In my opinion, I think yes, but I think everybody has peculiar situations, situations that are peculiar to them, right? Sometimes people just can't leave. Or sometimes people can't leave yet. Whatever the case is, every single day you stay in that marriage, change your focus to tending to your wounds. Change your focus to sustaining less wounds going forward. Change your focus to learning how to protect yourself while you are in that harmful environment. This is very, very important. Change your focus and your question to how do I fix myself? How do I heal myself? No more how do I fix this marriage, but how do I heal myself? Okay, I hope that has helped somebody. To my listeners in Canada, I want to say Happy Canada Day to you. To listeners in the US, I want to say a early Happy 4th of July, even though it's not 4th of July. It's still 3 days to that. And to everyone listening from everywhere else, I want you to know that Jesus loves you and is with you even in the midst of the pain. Have a blessed week.